With that, let me just throw it open. And can I have, yeah, thanks. And see who'd like to lead off. Yeah, Judge?
Senator, when President Obama took over office, the national debt was a little over $10 trillion, of which roughly 70% of that was accrued during since 1981 through the Reagan and then the various presidents in Clinton and Bush, of which 70% really went through the Republican administrations. Probably, in all likelihood, the interest is what is killing us probably more than obviously spending out of control. The $1 trillion a year that you're spending more than you take in is attributed to it. But why the urgency and I agree with you, it is a problem. Anytime you owe a lot of money, it's a problem. But why the urgency to nip it in the bud there?
The key figure is not the amount of the debt, but the percentage of the debt of your GDP. And there's been a dramatic escalation in the percentage of debt related to our GDP in the last 3 years. We had a manageable deficit as recently as 2007. As recently as 2007. Higher than any of us would like, but certainly manageable, not having an adverse impact on bond sales or anything else. And so I do think there's been a quantitative and qualitative difference in the situation. In the President's defense, I think he agrees with that. But what he would like to do, Judge, I think, is have such gigantic revenue increases.
Like President Clinton had.
Well, Clinton's was more modest. I mean, this guy's asking for...
He raised taxes, though. Clinton did.
He did. It was more modest. And we're looking at a request for $1 trillion in net static tax revenue. By that I mean over and above any kind of revenue you'd get out of tax reform, which we need to do again. It's been 25 years. So it's a question of how much. And reasonable people can differ. I look at the tax situation, and I'll tell you this. 46% of Americans pay no income taxes at all. None. No income tax at all. They pay Social Security tax, but no income tax. The top 10% of taxpayers provide the vast majority of the revenue for the federal government. I'm not sure who's getting away with anything here. I mean, class warfare, I think, appeals to a lot of people, but I'm not sure who's getting away with anything. I'm not here to stand up for high-income people. I think we ought to go after it on the benefit side. Why in the world should my tax dollars be going to supply Medicare and Social Security for Warren Buffett? I don't think we can afford it. So I'm not here to sort of stand up for successful people, although I do think success is something to be applauded rather than condemned. And I think we've already got a highly progressive income tax system now in which almost half Americans don't pay any income taxes at all. I don't know how much more you can squeeze out of that. The problem at its core is too much spending. I don't think you could confiscate all the property of highly successful people in this country and you couldn't solve the problem. So we were open to tax increases in the discussions we've had this year. And we certainly thought that they ought to be directed toward higher income people. But the question was, Judge, how much? How much? And a reluctance to do anything serious on the trajectory on the entitlement side. So it became very, very difficult to get together, but we're going to have to. We're going to have to. The problem's not going away. Yep.
Hi, I'm Donna Pagago. I'm a small business owner in Nelson County. I'm organizing a Bardstown, Nelson County Tea Party chapter here, not to promote Ron Paul or Ron Paul type people, but to promote American values, a resurgence of patriotism, combat voter empathy, things like that. In taking up the conversation you just had, if you tax the achievers too much, they're going to leave and go somewhere where it's beneficial to the people. So, that's the problem I see with that philosophy. The the first problem most Americans see is the wasteful spending. I think before we talk about cutting entitlements and things that there are legitimately people need, at first we should be rooting out and solving the wasteful problem, the duplication spending, the government agencies that are no longer necessary, and moving things up into the 21st century where we don't really have to spend the amount of money for everybody to come somewhere and do something when it can be done electronically and conferencing and all of these, these kind of changes. That's what I think most of the disenfranchised Americans, those are the people that I'm talking to in my group. It's not a Republican group, although I'm a lifelong Republican, and I'm a Republican first. It's not a Democratic group. It's not an independent group. It's an American group. And people are more and more becoming disenfranchised. And the whole problem now seems so overwhelming that we really need the expertise and advice of someone like you who knows the system to help us figure out a way to fix it, because it's begun to seem unsurmountable.
Boy, I sure wish you could do it by waste, fraud, and abuse.
But that's
everybody's against waste, fraud, and abuse is not enough to solve this problem. I wish if we could bring some efficiency expert in and solve this problem, that would be wonderful. And there's plenty of waste, fraud, and abuse. Make no mistake about it. The federal government, in many ways, is incompetent. But there isn't enough waste, fraud, and abuse. There's no easy way to get this done. I wish I could stand up here and honestly tell you we can fix this problem and you won't feel it. That would not be an honest answer. And you're entirely right about waste, fraud, and abuse. There's just not enough of it to fix the problem. And this is going to have to be dealt with. It's going to have to be dealt with on a bipartisan basis. And if we do what we need to do, most of you will say, gosh, I don't really like this. But much of what we need to do, if we do it soon, will kick in down the road and not have a huge impact immediately. And that's why I keep citing the Ronald Reagan, Tip O'Neill deal on Social Security. It was done smartly, done over a period of decades, so that people in advance could figure out when it might have an adverse impact or how to restructure their retirement plans based upon it. That's the kind of sensible thing we ought to do on the entitlement side. On the waste, fraud, and abuse side, it's a target-rich environment. You're absolutely right. There's plenty of it because the bigger you get, the more of it is. That's also true in very large corporations, too. It's a function of bigness. And there is plenty of it. The federal government is way too big. Way too big. And frankly, if people like me were in the majority, we'd be able to do a lot more about that than we can in a government where we control only the House of Representatives, not the Senate, and not the White House.